Have you ever felt like your prayers are bouncing off the walls? Like the heavens are silent and your heart is heavy with unanswered cries? Listen carefully. God sees every tear you've cried in secret. He hears every whisper of your soul, even the words you can't find strength to speak. And today, I'm here to remind you, breakthrough is coming. This is not the end of your story. God is moving behind the scenes, orchestrating something greater than you can imagine. Your pain is not wasted. Your waiting is not in vain. The Bible says in Psalm 34:18, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Even when you feel alone, you are not. His presence surrounds you. In your darkest hour, God stands by your side. Every tear you shed is counted. Every ache in your heart matters to Him. Your current pain is shaping you, preparing you for the promise ahead. Understand this. God's silence does not mean His absence. Sometimes He is quiet because He is working deeply in areas you cannot yet see. In those moments when the weight feels unbearable, trust that He is strengthening you for the next chapter. Remember the story of Hagar in Genesis 16. She fled into the wilderness, broken and alone. But God met her there. He spoke directly to her heart and gave her hope. Hagar called Him El Roi, the God who sees me. In the same way, God sees you. Whether you're in a season of heartbreak, financial hardship, or uncertainty, know that God's eyes are upon you. His compassion never fails. Isaiah 40:30. Says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles." Faith in the process is not easy. It requires surrender. It asks you to trust even when the road ahead is unclear. But let me remind you, God is not only the God of the destination, but He is also the God of the journey. Sometimes the delays, detours, and disappointments are divine setups. God is stretching your faith, not to break you, but to build you. Look at the life of Abraham. God told him to leave everything familiar and walk toward an unknown land. Abraham didn't have a roadmap. He had a promise, and with each step, his faith grew stronger. Faith is like a seed. It takes time to grow. There are seasons when nothing seems to sprout, but beneath the surface, God is nurturing something powerful. You may not see the fruit immediately, but trust that growth is happening in the unseen. The Israelites wandered the desert for 40 years, not because God wasn't ready, but because their faith needed refinement. God led them by cloud during the day and fire by night. His presence never left them. In the same way, His presence goes before you now. Maybe you're in a season where your prayers feel unanswered. But what if this waiting period is a blessing in disguise? Sometimes God holds back certain things until He knows we are ready to carry them. A blessing too early can feel like a burden. Remember, God is never late. His timing is intentional. While you wait, worship. While you wonder, trust. Your faith is being strengthened, and your breakthrough will arrive exactly when it needs to. Faith doesn't eliminate the process, but it gives you peace during the process. Hold on to that peace. Every step you take in faith draws you closer to the fulfillment of God's promises. Faith is often refined in the fire of uncertainty. It's in those moments, when nothing seems to make sense, that God is crafting the most profound testimonies. Consider the story of Noah. God told him to build an ark when there wasn't a single drop of rain in sight. For years, Noah faced ridicule and doubt from those around him. Yet he kept building. Why? Because his faith wasn't in what he could see. It was in the one who spoke the promise. Faith requires perseverance. There will be days when the weight of waiting feels unbearable. You might question if you heard God correctly, but remember, the enemy targets your faith because he knows its power. If he can weaken your belief, he can hinder your breakthrough. That's why the Bible says in Hebrews 11:6, without faith, it is impossible to please God. Faith isn't just a belief, it's a lifestyle. God's process often feels like pruning. It's uncomfortable when he cuts away things you thought you needed, relationships, jobs, or familiar places. But pruning isn't punishment, it's preparation. Jesus said in John 15:2, every branch that bears fruit he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. What feels like loss is actually God making room for more. Think of David. He was anointed as king long before he sat on the throne. In the waiting period, he faced rejection, betrayal, and danger. But instead of losing hope, David continued to worship and trust in the Lord. It was during those difficult years that God shaped him into a leader after his own heart. In the waiting, learn to celebrate small victories. Each answered prayer, no matter how small, is a reminder that God is faithful. Sometimes the process isn't about reaching the goal, but about becoming the person God destined you to be. Every challenge strengthens your spiritual muscles. Every setback is a setup for a greater comeback. When the Israelites stood at the edge of the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army behind them, fear filled their hearts. But Moses declared in Exodus 14, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Faith is trusting that God is parting the sea, even when you can't see the waters moving. Keep moving forward, even if you take small steps. Each step of faith is an act of worship, a declaration that you trust God more than the circumstances around you. Your process may not look like someone else's, and that's okay. God's plan for you is uniquely crafted. Let me encourage you. What you're carrying will not break you. God's grace will sustain you. The process may seem long, but every moment draws you closer to his promises. One day, you'll look back and realize the waiting wasn't wasted. It was where God performed his deepest work in you. So, stand firm. Speak life over your circumstances. Declare, I am being refined. I am being prepared. My breakthrough is near, and God's promises over my life will not return void.